now that the album was finished, then we talked about going out on tour. And I'd never done anything like that before. I mean, I'd done some music stuff, summer jobs here and there, but I'd never done a tour. And it was a great opportunity, and Bob said, well, let's do it. I said, okay, let's do it. And so he he talked to Ben and Naomi Saltzman, who represented him, and said we were going to do it, introduced me to them. And off we went. We got a whole evening together, and I said that I thought McGuinn should come along, and Bob knew McGuinn very well for years. And as a matter of fact, I think you have to give McGuinn credit for helping make Bob's work popular. You know, Tambourine Man and stuff like that. Originally, those original recordings by the Byrds, I think, were the popular ones. And who knows if they hadn't done Tambourine Man the way they did it, you never know what would happen. But in any case, McGuinn came along, we got a couple of other people to come along. We figured we had a good enough band so that the band could do a segment by themselves. And we began to put together a show. And we went into rehearsal, just, which was unusual for that kind of thing. I said, no, I had to have rehearsal, and I had to work on this stuff with them. Okay, so they put up the money for rehearsal, and they hired a hall, and I had everybody come in, and we worked on what the numbers were going to be and how people were going to get off the stage and on the stage. I mean, I hate rock and roll shows where you sit down and the next half hour you watch them plug in. I can't stand it. I just think it's such bad planning, and it's so lousy. It's, I know it might be great once they start, but I just think it's horrible. And I didn't want any of that. I wanted people to come on the stage and just do their act and then get off. And we worked it out pretty well for the Rolling Thunder Revue that people could do that. And then we wanted to do a few little surprises here and there once in a while. I think at one of the first shows, I don't know, maybe the third or fourth show, I had Bob come out with a band and his hat down over his eyes so that nobody could see who it was. And I knew that little by little people would begin to sense it in the audience and recognize him, and the word would get around. I just thought it would be funny to watch that happen. And it was indeed funny. It was great to watch people pointing at the stage and showing. And it was fun. And we worked out a running order each night for what the songs are going to be. Not that there was nothing inflexible, of course. People wanted to change it, they could, but that was the basic running order. And some people changed it, some didn't. And at least it allowed people to know what they were going to do, when they were going to do it. and Joan Baez came along. Bob called her up, and she said she'd come along, and that was a great treat for me, because I like Joan Baez very much, and the two of them. Nobody sings with Bob the way she does. I mean, it's just spectacular. And so we had a terrific show, that we were ready to bring out. And then the question was booking it. Well, I had nothing to do with that, but I don't think that was very hard to do. I mean, if you're booking a show with Joan Baez, Roger McGuinn, and Bob Dylan headlining, I don't think that's a difficult thing to book around the country. And sure enough, they got all these bookings in various venues, some small, some big. At the very beginning, I think we played a couple of small venues, and I thought, oh, well, this is easy to do. And then we went into one of these huge cow palace places, and I said, oh my God, how are we? Well, somehow we managed. If you went way up in the back and looked, there was this tiny thing down. People would pack the place. So it was exciting as can be. We were out on the road for I don't know how many months, and we went all around the country, and it was very exciting for me, and I think for everybody involved. I think everybody loved that tour. I mean, we had a really good time touring. Bob had been out on tour about 2 years before with the band. And he said he did not want to do a tour like that. He couldn't stand it. It was all limos and, you know, it was that kind of stuff. And he just couldn't stand, he just hated it. He hated the idea that, you know, it was getting these, fly somewhere, get down on the ground, get into a limo, vroom, zoom, vroom, and wind up doing a show, get back in the limo, go out to the airport, go and fly in another plane. He said the jets and the limos just drove him nuts. And I said, well, it doesn't have to be that way. I said, why don't you do a tour like the lowest of the low theater tours? It's called a bus and truck. I said, we'll hire a couple of buses and we'll hire a couple of trucks for equipment and we'll just go on the roads. And he said, well, let's try that. And it turned out to be great because they had a lot of fun on the buses and you got a sense of going from Cincinnati to somewhere else. I mean, you know, it was real. It wasn't just zipping around. And it was exciting to pull into a town and see the town from ground level before you played in it, you know. And after a while, when the word got around that that's what we were doing, people would see the buses come into town and they would wave, and it was kind of fun. So that all became part of the touring. We could stop and go into a diner and get some food and get back in the bus and go, and we enjoyed ourselves.